that what you've been holding space for is not only possible, it's already in motion. And I need you to hear this. You are not walking this path alone. Reality operates in patterns, in rhythms that once you begin to recognize them, you'll understand that nothing you've been through has been wasted. Every moment has been preparation. So if you've been noticing synchronicities lately, whether through moments that feel too aligned to be random or an inexplicable sense of calm, what you're about to receive might be the exact frequency you've been tuned into. Have you noticed how life seems to intensify right before a major shift occurs? It's as if the universe turns up the volume on everything at once. Financial pressures appear more acute than they've been in months. The people around you seem to push every boundary you've set, and the trajectory you thought was clear suddenly feels foggy and uncertain. That intense period, the one where you're holding more than you thought possible while watching pieces slip through your fingers, often arrives just before a completely new chapter opens. Most people interpret this as evidence they're moving in the wrong direction. But here's what most people don't understand. You're actually standing at the threshold of metamorphosis, closer than you've ever been. Consider this carefully. Transformation rarely happens during the comfortable seasons. More often than not, quantum leaps follow periods that activated every defense mechanism you possess. It's like approaching the summit of a mountain. The final ascent demands everything from you, yet it's also what carries you to the peak. In a way that defies logic, that closing phase of difficulty isn't an obstacle placed there to block your progress. It's frequently the energetic confirmation that evolution is already happening beneath the surface. People overlook this because they interpret the challenge as evidence of failure rather than the forging process before emergence. Imagine someone who's barely keeping their world together. Each sunrise brings a heavier weight than the one before. They're pouring hours into work, yet the stack of unpaid bills on their counter only grows taller. Phone calls arrive that compound the pressure, and all they're asking for is a moment to breathe. In situations like these, it's natural to feel like everything is collapsing, as though there's no intelligent design at work. But underneath what appears to be chaos is typically a reconstruction, old structures dismantling themselves to create space for something your previous reality couldn't accommodate. Think of it like weather moving through in the darkness. Water hammers the glass. Thunder rattles the foundation. And you question whether dawn will ever come. But if you remain present long enough, the first rays of light begin filtering through the edges. And just like that, the storm has passed. That's the nature of obstacles before transformation. The night convinces you it's eternal, yet it only exists for a fraction of time. And the light was already approaching long before you could perceive it. Research in human psychology has documented this phenomenon repeatedly. Resilience deepens when individuals are positioned near significant transitions. That window where everything feels overwhelming is typically when the most profound internal development occurs. It's not pleasant while you're living it, but the capacity built during challenging periods is precisely what prepares you to step into what's waiting. The trial and the transformation are two threads of the same fabric. Consider the account of a young woman crushed under financial obligations she couldn't meet. She remained in her small space surrounded by red-stamped envelopes, questioning how much longer she could sustain this. From where she stood, nothing made logical sense. She showed up every single day, gave everything she had, and still the numbers didn't add up. Then, without warning, a text arrived from someone she hadn't connected with in years. That person extended support she never saw coming, addressing precisely the gap she needed filled. What appeared to be total breakdown was actually the staging ground for a shift she couldn't have orchestrated on her own. Experiences like this show us that struggle often signals something deeper is reorganizing itself. On the visible level, things appear to be fragmenting, but internally, there's a recalibration taking place. Old programming is dissolving. Old structures are exiting the stage. And the emptiness they create is what permits something more aligned to finally enter. This is why the difficulties before blessings carry more intensity than previous challenges. It's a clearing process. And here's the layer most people never see. The universe isn't testing you as punishment. It's expanding you, conditioning you to hold what's already being prepared. A greater blessing requires a more solid foundation. And sometimes the only way to construct that foundation is by moving through challenges that feel impossible in the moment. The more intense the pressure feels, the nearer the breakthrough typically is. So if you've been experiencing one setback after another, it's not random cruelty from an indifferent cosmos. It's confirmation you're closer than you realize. Those difficult moments are the signals that something larger is organizing itself behind the veil. And after those storms move through, delicate indicators begin to emerge. Clues that the miracle isn't distant, though most people walk right past them, even when they're directly in their field of vision. What if the evidence of your miracle has already been appearing, but you haven't recognized what it meant? Many people anticipate a miracle to arrive with some dramatic fanfare, an unmistakable, powerful signal that reshapes everything in an instant. But in practice, the universe tends to communicate in more nuanced ways. Rather than explosive displays, the initial signs typically arrive as subtle moments. They might present as coincidences or simply a quiet sensation that something is preparing to shift. Some people describe it as a piece they cannot rationalize, others as peculiar little synchronizations, encountering the same message repeatedly, connecting with someone who catalyzes an insight, or observing opportunities that continue to circle back around. The challenge is most of us disregard these occurrences. We label them as random chance, or convince ourselves we're creating patterns where none exist. Really think about it. How many times have you felt an internal pull to move in a different direction, but dismissed it because it didn't appear reasonable? Or perhaps someone offered you perspective that aligned perfectly with something you'd been contemplating, but you wrote it off as meaningless conversation. It's simple to rationalize things away, yet those gentle pushes often contain information that you only recognize later when you reflect back. At that point, you understand they were directing you toward your miracle the entire time. Here's a clear illustration. Imagine a man who's been uncertain for a while about where to direct his energy. He's exhausted by his current work and feels trapped, unsure of his next move. Beneath the surface, his true calling has always been photography, but rather than honoring it, he convinces himself it's impractical. Over several weeks, friends reach out asking if he can document their events. A person in his building mentions a freelance photography opportunity. Even the content appearing on his screen fills with tutorials and stories about cameras. From the outside, these appear as insignificant, unrelated occurrences. He brushes them aside, telling himself they don't mean anything. Yet internally, something was attempting to guide him toward a clear path. He couldn't see it because he expected the guidance to manifest differently. Perhaps more obviously, perhaps more forcefully. It's not just his experience. Most of us miss an open doorway because it doesn't match the image we constructed in our minds. It's like experiencing hunger but refusing the actual nourishment in front of you simply because it doesn't resemble the meal you envisioned. You continue waiting for something else to materialize, not recognizing that provision has already shown up. And in many situations, this is where people miss the miracle. Not because it wasn't present, but because it arrived wrapped in a form they didn't anticipate. The concept of subtle moments carrying deeper significance isn't recent. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, explored extensively what he termed synchronicity. It's the way existence brings circumstances or sequences together that on the surface appear disconnected, but at a deeper level carry a sense of meaningful connection. You might understand it as existence's method of saying pay attention, that specific pathways, individuals, or possibilities hold more weight than they initially seem to. We've all experienced moments where things align in this manner, but it's easy to lose sight of how frequently they occur when we're consumed by pressure or uncertainty. There was a woman, as an example, contemplating a career transition. She oscillated in her thinking for months, uncertain if she could accept the risk. Then, within the span of 7 days, 3 separate people she barely knew mentioned the exact field she'd been considering entering. One spoke about how fulfilling it was. Another shared how they'd just begun that same